That is not dead, which can eternal lie, and with strange eons even death may die. Welcome to the Great Old Ones Gaming Podcast. I'm your host, Nate, lost in time and space.
I'm Man from Leng, host of the Whisper in Darkness YouTube channel.
I'm Innkeeper Vase Odin from the Twisted Tentacle Inn.
And this is Nathan, the primordial glue that holds everybody together.
How are you guys tonight?
Good.
Doing great.
Nice.
Not too bad.
Not too great, but you're the glue.
Oh,
you need to
just
be great.
shove it.
Well, what you guys been playing recently?
I have been playing the hell out of Marie and enjoying her quite a bit. She's a very good investigator. That extra action that she gets when you've got a doom on her is awesome. She's got high intellect, which is awesome. Not the greatest at combat, but I'll take what I can get.
Have you
had some very good games with her?
Are you using her solo?
Yep.
And what campaign did you play her through?
Just Return to the Night of the Gathering.
A classic.
But she struggles really hard in the Midnight Masks because it has a lot of stuff that's really not geared towards her. The locked doors are a pain for her. She doesn't have really a good answer to those, and she's got enough combat to take down a couple of big enemies, but she doesn't have quite enough to kill everything. So the longer the game goes, the board starts to get clogged, and she starts to run out of options, and it can really be difficult to scrape by at the end. And of course it has that, the doom threshold on those agendas is very, very tight. And so an investigator who benefits from adding doom to the table can't really flex that power all that much without potentially ending your game sooner than you would like. And I've played her through the Witching Hour as well, and there it's a lot. You've got a lot more flexibility because the doom thresholds are so much greater. But you hit something like Midnight Masks, and it's just like, I'd really love to have what's his name on the table right now, but I can't because I can't afford to add the doom to him.
Other than Midnight Mask, how have you been managing the doom? Have you found it pretty much easy to manage, or?
Yeah, I don't find it too bad. I at one point I've been playing around with a couple different builds, sort of swapping cards in and out, trying to find the right mix. But at one point I'd taken out all the Moonlight Rituals because I didn't find that I was using them to remove doom. But then I think I ran into one game where I was like, yeah, I might have been good to have it there, but so I've cut it back to a copy, and I was running 2 copies of Storm of Spirits, but it's a little too expensive and it doesn't do quite enough. I really hope they release a higher experience version of that card, because I think it would be amazing to pick up, like if it did say 4 experience for 4 damage or something like that, so you can hit some of those tougher enemies. Because
Or it'd be good if they released it as Storm of Sprites, and then you're looking at it going, to hell?
What?
That's right. I would just settle for the damage, because I know I've been sitting there, and I think in the one when I was streaming a game, I ended up with two Night Gaunts. And I did manage to kill both of them, and Storm of Spirits was instrumental in that. But it would have been nice to have a little bit more damage and not having to take... The only reason I was able to kill both is because I did have 4 actions.
A little lemon lime action, kill them all.
Are you leveraging her intellect, or are you using a Rite of Seeking and Sixth Sense?
No, I'm just using her intellect and the camera from
Oh, the camera. Yeah.
What's
That's
it called? The hyper.
The
Hawkeye?
Hawkeye camera.
The Hawkeye folding camera, and I use Hawkeye folding camera and St. Hubert's key.
Yeah, if you have nothing else for your hands, you can have 2 Hawkeye cameras and St. Hubert's key.
Yeah, well, I find that I mean, it's awesome if you can get both the Hawkeye camera and St. Hubert's key down, but I mean, the Hawkeye is so temperamental when it comes to timing. I mean, it's amazing if you draw it early, but the later the game goes, obviously the less useful it becomes, whereas St. Hubert's key, it actually becomes more viable the longer the game goes. It's still viable, I should say. It's not like the Hawkeye where it's like, well, I'm pretty much done discovering clues, so I can't really play it at this point.
It's just so expensive. That's the prohibitive part of it.
Well, yeah, St. Hubert's key is very expensive, but if you've got I'm blanking on names tonight for some reason. I don't know why. What's his name? The ally who gives you resources.
Milan Christopher?
No, not him.
Christopher Milan?
Renfield?
Renfield. If you've got Renfield down, I mean, resources have never been a problem to the point where I was playing a copy of Emergency Cache in there just in case, and I think that needs to come out as well because resources just have never been an issue.
I think we need to say Renfield like Farnsworth says Wormstrom in Futurama. Renfield! Every time you play him or whatever. New rule. I'm making it like the taboo list. You don't have to use it, but you have to use it.
Yeah. I mean, Renfield and Marie are amazing together, but I mean, when you are playing the Midnight Masks and you end up having a Doom on him, I mean, you really want to keep that Doom on him, but by the same token, it's like as you watch that Doom tick up, it can be really tricky trying to time when you get rid of him.
Was that like a really subtle shout out to By the Same Token on Etsy?
No.
Yeah, there's just some scenarios that are so dependent on running through them quickly because what's that? The Greater Good is also really, really.
The Greater Good.
For the Greater Good, right? Yeah.
Yes.
The Doom just moves so fast on that one. I would be so scared to play any card that plays with Doom.
Or Essex County,
or Essex County. That's another one.
Yeah, Essex County. But I think Marie, like I haven't played Essex County with Marie, but I suspect that because she's got 4 intellect, that she could probably race that thing, and beat it well before the Doom became an issue.
Like we're gonna find out in 2 weeks. The
trick with that one, I mean, if you can get through, say, a couple of cars before you start removing cars, you're in really good shape.
Yeah, there's 2 Maries playing in the League of Extraordinary Investigators, and that's the next scenario coming out.
Well, speaking of the League, did you play your Skids game?
I did, and man, I just have such bad luck. It went really well. I got 4 experience points, and I was able to resign, getting an R2. And then I go to pick up my camera, and it had disconnected 7 minutes into the game. So I had to redo the entire game. Only this time it went it went worse than I must have played 15 practice games, and in every single one of them, even the ones where I was defeated, I got at least 3 experience points. But in this one, it just did not happen. It was so bad. Everything just went downhill so quickly, like halfway through, and it just kept rolling downhill. Like, it was so bad. I
watched part of that game, and I think there was one point where you were trying to investigate, what was it, the administration building or something?
Yeah.
Or the administration office, and you drew like a -4 into a -3. It's like,
yeah.
Ugh.
And I needed a flashlight. I had 2 flashlights in the deck, and both of them were in the bottom of the deck. And it didn't happen a single game that I played of my test games, which is fine. You know, that can happen. But my token pulls were all below average, and
that's why I think it's just. I mean, you've got an investigator like Skids, who I do like, and I have played quite a bit of, and I do enjoy playing him, but he's got that 3 intellect, and he relies on. He's just not quite as quick. Like the difference between 3 intellect and 4 intellect just feels like night and day.
Well, one
It
intellect,
really does.
actually.
And then when you play a 5 intellect investigator, like I remember the first time I started playing Norman, I was just like, wow, this is like, I was trying to play this deck manipulation build, and I'm just like, why bother with this? I mean, I'm just
Running through
faster.
everything.
Like I'm just running through everything. I'm beating the scenario before, like trying to manipulate any of the decks is pointless because I'm just going so much faster than the scenario is.
So,
Yeah.
real quick, so Leng, that's what you've been doing, playing Marie and enjoying her, which is good. And then Vase, what have you been up to in the world of Arkham?
Well, in Arkham, I'm doing the league with Skids, which I'm having a lot of fun despite the the shortcomings. It's been a lot of fun and learning Skids. Every game that I play, even if I lose, I learn a lot. And then I've also been playing, with my meetup group, and we're starting a Circle Undone campaign next week. So we're going to be starting brand new, and I have decided, thanks to your help, to use Daisy. So I've been working on building a deck for her.
Nice. Are you planning on using some of the new cards that came out, or are you gonna?
Most definitely. I have been looking really into a few of those new cards. Definitely Enraptured seems to work really well in the build that I'm working on. And there's one card, Knowledge is Power, which seems like a dumb card initially, like a very niche card. But the more I look into it, it's a fast action. So the card is a level 0, cost 0. It's a fast action. You can only play it during your turn. You can choose a tome or spell asset that you either control or that you have in your hand, and you can play an action or fast action ability, ignoring all costs. So basically, it's almost like getting a free. Let's say if you need to use Rite of Seeking, or if you need to attack with Shriveling, you're getting a free attack, and you're not going to get an attack of opportunity or anything of the sort. And you can attack with a Shriveling for free and still have your 3 actions left. Or if you have something in your hand, and you won't use a charge from it. So between that and Enraptured, I'm thinking like she'll have a lot of charges available for some of the more mystical aspects of her deck. I'm interested to play around with it and see how it goes.
I got another question for you too. Are you playing with taboos or no taboos?
Yeah, we're starting. I'm encouraging it. I'm not going to require anyone, because some of the people in the meetup only have like 2 core sets and like Dunwich Deluxe. So I don't want to limit anyone.
Are
who
you
doesn't have the
forcing
cards.
people you play with to wear corsets?
Yes, that is a requirement. But
All right.
not the
Kinda
taboo
hot.
list. It is, and that's why I do it.
All right, Nate, what have you been? Oh, never mind. You haven't been playing a lot of Arkham, have you?
Well, I mean, I did get a chance to play for a couple of days after I got back. I did play through a solo campaign of Yorick through the Circle Undone, which went pretty okay until we ended up having to go through Kasai Mason's house, and that was not well at all whatsoever. York has such a rough time trying to get clues, and that scenario is so brutal once you get up into the room there, Walter Brown's room. Yeah, so, ugh. So yeah, Nahab gave me a quit smacking on that scenario, and then moved on and managed to get one of the ghosts from Wages of Sin, and then for the greater good didn't end up so well either. So, and then. Other than that, I also finally got my 3 ultimatum playthrough of Solo Rita through Return to Dunwich recorded. So I'm in the process of editing that now. And that should be up on my YouTube channel soon. So, Other than that, that's pretty much what I've been doing over the past few weeks.
Are you doing Return to Dunwich or regular Dunwich?
Return to Dunwich.
Oh, cool.
So yeah, it's all the new cards, and then the 3 ultimatums that I chose were the ultimatum that gives you no experience, the ultimatum that makes you not skip the first Mythos phase of the game, and then the last one is the one that kills you if you're ever defeated. So.
Oh my god.
So we'll see. I'm hoping to just make it past Essex County, honestly.
I hope you're playing on expert.
No, we're playing on standard. Expert would be so brutal.
Oh yeah, no, of course.
I feel like with no experience alone, it's going to be a challenge in and of itself because Rita's going to have such a hard time trying to get any clues.
Brutal.
And
and I
what are you up
mentioned,
to, Nathan?
Well, I just mentioned before we got underway that I have been doing my Father Mateo deck for one of our runs, the Forgotten Age run. And we did one of the scenarios in which we had some extra money. So my very first turn, I was like, hey, everybody, I'm going first. And they're like, all right. So I played Codex of Ages and sealed the Elder Sign, which, is not good for them, but good for me. And I played Protective Incantation, which nabbed the -5 symbol, or -5 token. And then I also played a Chthonian Stone, which sealed the Elder thing. So that was a fun way to start the whole thing off.
That -5 is key. If you're able to seal that early on, it changes the entire scenario.
Oh yeah, good times. And then before the end of the scenario, I played Seal of the Seventh Sign, so that the last couple plays of the game we had no instant fail in play. So overall, it was a pretty fun run.
How many players?
4.
And no one died?
I'm not at liberty to say.
Wait, what about in the game? Any investigators defeated?
Well, I didn't mean in real life. Come on. One may have gotten defeated, but he also might have been Calvin, so he was okay with it.
Oh.
And then, are we going to go into our special giveaway, Nate?
Ooh.
Yeah. So, continuing our giveaway from last episode, given to the confusion and lack of clarity of the question,
and the sheer number of entries.
Whew, yes, also that.
We should name this contest Confusion and Disillusion.
So we're going to go ahead and redo the question, but we're still going to give away the custom pins that Miles from Aurbits made for me. But the question is, what do you want to hear more of, or what do you like most about our podcast?
So either one.
Either one. And we're going to accept all entries on our official Discord channel, which a link is provided on our website and in the show notes of this episode, so you can hop onto our Discord and chat with us and submit your entries there, and we'll pick a winner from that channel next episode. So you're going to want to stay tuned for that.
That's right. Get out there and enter.
Yes.
We want to give this stuff away, so make sure you visit the Discord and come by and say hello and enter this contest.
And chat with us. And you can literally chat with us for the rest of your life.
Literally.
Because we've been around forever.
Nice,
Yes, eons, in fact.
Eons.
Don't call to comeback.
Yeah, in other news too, Vase and I recently did a special interview with Shane Ivey. He's the co-founder of Arc Dream Publishing, and we had a chance to sit down with him and talk about Delta Green and some of his other work that they've been doing over there. So that was really cool. And that episode is going to go live towards the end of the month. So you're going to want to check that out as well.
He's a really interesting person, and there was so much good stuff when we were interviewing him. Whether or not you're a fan of Delta Green, if you're into any Mythos games, Shane really has an interesting perspective, and he's done quite a bit for gaming, Mythos gaming in general. So definitely check it out. He's a really cool guy too.
Yeah, he's been working on Delta Green since the 90s. So he originally worked with Pagan Publishing and then worked with Dennis DeTwiller on founding Arc Dream. And then from there, they started publishing it. So it's really cool.
For anyone who's a fan of The King in Yellow, his company, Arc Dream Publishing, just released a annotated edition of The King in Yellow.
I'm sorry, which god is that?
What's that?
He's the
The
unspeakable
king in
one.
yellow, which guy was that?
The actual story.
It's big H.
Yeah.
It's big H, of course.
Oh, you're trying to get me. You know,
What?
He's
Nathan.
trying to trick you. Don't be tricked. Don't
Wow.
be tricked.
I almost fell for it. So the annotated edition has some awesome information, like a lot of stuff you may not have known about Robert W. Chambers and the stories and where they came from. And the artwork is just fantastic. It's like a fairy tale nightmare. It's amazing. So a lot of cool stuff coming from Shane Ivey, and if you're a fan of anything Mythos related, definitely I highly recommend you check out this interview.
I like how you say that as in a like obvious taunt to everyone listening to this.
Yeah, of course. That's what it's meant to do.
So yeah, other than
true.
all the shopkeeping news, main topics for tonight, we're gonna go over the player cards from Union and Disillusion, the most recent Mythos pack to be released for the Arkham Horror card game. We're also going to discuss the announcement of the new Deluxe expansion, the Dreamlands, that was announced earlier this month. And then we're going to go ahead and move into trivia time and fan-made content. So, guys, what do you think about the player cards from Union and Disillusion overall?
I liked most of them that I've seen so far. I did like, I know when I looked at them, when the preview came out, I did like Warning Shot and Decoy and the Guiding Spirit. Wasn't crazy about Esoteric Atlas. It's probably good in certain scenarios, but not others. Vase obviously likes Knowledge is Power, and I can certainly see the potential for that one. Investments, I mean, that's just resource generation over a long period of time. And the only one I'm kind of iffy about right now is Telescopic Sight. Cause
They say you should put it on a shotgun and just have fun with it.
Or a flamethrower.
The only reason I mean, I just read it. I just sort of looked at it, and it basically makes your gun useless as long as anything is engaged with you. Now, there are ways around that, but personally, sort of the idea of making my gun useless, just in case you need to engage something.
Oh, well, I mean,
Sort of.
stick to the plan. You could always play it situationally.
It's a strange choice. Like, Telescopic Sight would be good for someone, say, like Skids, that can evade a monster and then move away and then shoot him from far away. Like, I could see something like that for him, but he can't even take the Telescopic Sight. So, not quite sure who they made that card for.
I think it's more made for multiplayer, where you have someone like Rita or another investigator that's built to evade enemies, and then you just have your guardian just like kind of sit back and shoot them.
Sure,
with, like a
but then
bar or
they're
something like
disabled, so someone's got to be at the location with the monster. It's going to come to you anyways, and then you can't deal with them because you can't hit someone in your location. So it's really a strange choice. I'm not quite sure what the purpose behind it was. I watched Leng from your video review of the cards on your channel on Whisper in Darkness.
Yeah.
And you mentioned, the potential combo with like Bandolier 2 and having another weapon in addition to a two-handed weapon with this. But you mentioned how difficult it is to have, like, you need 4 cards to pull that off.
Yeah, well, I find that the more, I mean, you got a two-handed weapon, you've got Bandolier, then you've got another weapon. I mean, it's possible. It's certainly possible that you can get all that down. I'm just curious about this card. I mean, it's fast, so that's good. I mean, you're not taking an action to put this on your weapon. It's just that as soon as you attach it, say you've got a shotgun, you can't be engaged with enemies anymore if you want to use that shotgun. You can use other weapons, but you can't use your shotgun.
And its cost is kind of prohibitive too, because it's what.
And
it's
then
3
so
costs,
if you
right?
want to shoot something with your shotgun, at your location, it has to be engaged. It either has to be not engaged with you, which means you've either evaded it or somebody else has evaded it, which is going to take actions, or it's going to be engaged with somebody else. And the idea of shooting at somebody engaged with an enemy with my shotgun, I mean, you're going to get away with it sometimes until you draw a tentacle and end up blowing that investigator away. So that's, I mean, it's risky. But then, so then you say you move away to a different location and then you can shoot at it, but you can only shoot at non-elite enemies. So I don't know. It doesn't excite me. I guess that's the best way to. It's not a card that I would be like when I'd look at the list of upgrades. I'd be like, yeah, I need to buy this.
Have we seen the big Guardian gun for this cycle? I guess maybe
Unless
the only
it's
thing
the Tommy
is
gun.
I would hope not. But
Yeah.
Yeah, maybe it works well with that or something. But yeah,
Maybe, but
If
think
there's
one-
justice, it'll be a blowgun.
you know, I think honestly, I think the big gun is that spoiled that the grenades, Mark 1 grenades. I think that's their big gun for this cycle, because their really big card is that the ally that costs 7 to
The
play.
agency backup.
Yeah,
Oh, that's right.
that's
I
their big
forgot
card. I
about
can't
that.
imagine them having another big card like that. So the grenade is going to be their strongest weapon, which is a really good weapon to be honest. But yeah, I just don't see this telescopic sight working with anything, and it's really mind-boggling.
Well, it's like they've tried. I'd have to look back and see what the game text on the Springfield is. That just goes to show how often I've played that card. But they keep trying to do something with shooting at enemies at connecting locations. Like they had the Springfield, which I thought would sort of do it, but it doesn't. And they've got marksmanship, which I think does work. And now they've got the telescopic sight, which it's like you can shoot at things at neighboring locations, but you can't shoot at anything engaged with you, which is, I mean, that's taking away an investigator's flexibility, which is what would concern me more than
If
than
it were
anything
in a
else.
class like Seekers that can search for cards pretty reliably now after all the cards released this cycle, you know, then they can get their combo pieces into place. But there's no Seeker that can take this, and there's no Guardian that can take all those or that amount of Seeker cards to be able
well,
to.
maybe Roland, but I don't think I'd ever play this in Roland.
Definitely not. And, you know,
Doesn't seem to be a Roland card to me, but it's been a while since I played Roland too, so
yeah, and the other combo pieces like Warning Shot is a interesting combo piece with this, but then it's non-elite. The Warning Shot doesn't let you push elites, and I think this
No.
doesn't let you target elites either, right? So
no.
so you're
But
stuck.
I mean, it's very rare. I think that any card will like. I mean, I think that there were a few in the core set and released shortly after that you could target elites with, but it seems most of the cards we've been getting lately are non-elite only.
Mm-hmm.
But I mean, elite enemies don't seem to be that common either. I mean, it's like there's one big one per scenario sort of thing.
Yeah, that's fair. I could agree with that.
So it's not a huge, like, I don't consider, like, if they slap like non-elites only on a card, I don't really consider that to be a death sentence for the card by any means.
Yeah. What about Decoy? What does everyone think about Decoy?
I like it,
I
but
think I liked it.
it's okay.
I need to check it again here. Oh, that's the one where you get to.
To upgrade
Yeah,
it, like
That's
pay
the
more.
one you spend more.
Yeah, I'll quickly read it off here. It's a 2-cost rogue event with the favor and service traits. It has 2 agility skill icons, and it reads, evade, automatically evade a non-elite enemy at your location, and it has a reaction that says, when you play Decoy, increase its cost by 2, change a non-elite enemy to up to 2 non-elite enemies, and has a reaction that states, when you play a Decoy, increase its cost by 2, change at your location to at a location up to 2 connections away.
Yeah. If you're playing an evade heavy deck, this is the only way you can evade an enemy that's 2 locations away from you, which I think could be. I mean, if the map is big enough, that can certainly come in handy.
I could see that being useful in the witching hour.
Witching hour's good.
Yeah, when you know an enemy is going to flip onto a location and you can evade it ahead of time and then move into the location.
I think I'm sorry, go ahead.
I was just going to say, in the witching hour particularly, it's nice because you can use it to evade Annette Mason and then move in and try to investigate all the clues before she gets back up and attacks you.
She's elite, I think, isn't she?
Oh yeah, she is.
Oh, good point. Good point.
But I mean,
you could evade two of the witches. You could
witches,
evade like the Coven Initiates. I think they're.
So you're not getting three opportunity
true.
attacks. It's also really good in Carnivale where there's so many hunter enemies, and they're chasing you. So like, you can't evade them until they get to you, and if they get to you, that means they're attacking you that round. So if you can evade them while they're still on their way to you, at least it'll slow them down for a round. And in Forgotten Age, I think this is actually really good in Forgotten Age.
Yeah, I could see that too. Yeah,
because there's a lot of hunters there too.
6 resources is a lot. That's a lot, even for somebody like Preston.
I mean,
it's certainly possible, but
let me reread this because I was wondering something. Location up to 2.
Yeah, it says up to 2 locations away.
Up to 2 connections away. Okay, connections. Okay, all right. Well, I mean, I think it's good against hunters, and you don't have to roll. And it's good against the alert keyword, which is really prevalent in Forgotten Age. I mean, I would pay the extra 2 to evade 2 enemies with alert. Although it seems like elite enemies tend to have alert more, right?
That tends to be the case, yes.
Yeah. So I guess maybe we'd have to look at how many non-elite enemies have alert to see how good that is.
Yeah, I'm not crazy about the rogue cards in this pack. Investments is really only good if you get it down early.
I like investments.
Plus, it might even go with who's that guy that's got all the money?
Mr. Fairmont?
Sure.
Mr. Preston Fairmont? I mean, yeah, but again, like, if you get it early, it's good, but if you get it late, it's just...
Sure.
Yeah, so cards like that can be difficult.
I mean, you
to
need
assess.
to, just looking at it here, you need to, like, it costs 1, so you need to be able to free trigger it in 2 turns to get your money back, and then you need to take so you need to take an action to play it, 2 free triggers to put 2 tokens on it, and then a second action to get to move the resources. So and it's exhaust each time, so that's 4 turns.
Yeah, my problem with it is that why would you play investments over something like Lone Wolf?
You don't have to play it over it. You just play it in addition to Lone Wolf. What's good is once you have it on the board, if you get it, like you guys said, I mean, you do have to play it early enough, but once you get it on the board, it doesn't cost you anything, and you're accumulating resources that you can later use for a big turn.
Yeah, it is good
it's
if
3
you get it
turns,
early.
not 4. It's 3. You need 3 turns to get your money out of it. And I find like an average solo game will go for 10 turns. So if you need it, if you get it down quickly enough, you could net yourself a fair number of resources. If you don't see it, then it's an intellect skill icon.
Yeah, that's the only thing that bugs me is that intellect skill icon, because it's not I don't know.
I think if this card had 2 icons, it'd be pretty strong.
Yeah.
But one card I think that is strong is the only mystic card in the pack, the Divermus Mysteris.
Just wait a second. Are you trying to say that what is it? Fortune or Fate is not a good card?
That is not what I'm saying.
No,
That's
I
not a
literally
mystic
heard
card,
you say.
though.
You literally just said it sucked. I'm just saying.
He
Oh,
said no. He
well.
said the only good Mystic card, Fortune or Fate, is a Survivor card, right?
I step out of this
Yes.
conversation. Bad signal.
Go ahead,
But yeah.
Nate.
Yeah, Divermus Mysteris is a. I'm probably butchering that too. It's a mystic asset. It takes up a hand slot. It has the item and tome traits. It costs 2 resources and 2 experience. It has an intellect icon and has an action that says exhaust it and place a doom on it. Play a spell or insight event from your discard pile, reducing its cost by 1. After that event resolves, remove it from the game. So, yeah, this card is only... This is one of those cards that gets better as the card pool expands, and there's more good spell and insight events that you want to be using this with. This seems good when someone like Daisy or Marie, who have a decent access to insight events.
Yeah, somebody posted on my YouTube channel that they had been playing around with this and they'd had really good results with it in Marie, so I'm looking forward to giving it a shot. I think I might actually, this might be something you'd need a Moonlight Ritual for. Just in case, if you really want to hit this up more than once, say per agenda, I think you'd want a Moonlight Ritual just to clear it.
Yeah, because the Doom is a big cost, but being able to reuse cards is very good.
Yeah, as he meant, I think I don't know his name, but he did mention that, I mean, this does target Marie's signature card, so you can play it twice.
Oh, that's
per
very
game.
good. Yeah, that's
so,
very good.
I mean, that's buying you 2 turns right there. Plus, I mean, you've got ward protection and deny existence and anything else you need, sort of whenever you need it. So,
Yeah, I think a card. This would be a bomb card with something like Deciphered Reality, because that card alone is insanely good in certain scenarios in multiplayer. And if you can replay it even one time, I would take a Doom for something like that, to be able to pick up a massive amount of clues in one action, or even a free action if you're Marie or Daisy. Seems to me like
yeah,
that.
I think there's a lot of applications for this card, and I don't see a lot of people talking about it. But maybe that's just me. I saw someone in the Mythos Busters Discord mention it, but
Yeah. Here's the only thing with this though. So there's a level 3 secret card called, I don't know how to pronounce it, Eidetic Memory, which does a similar thing. It's you play it, it doesn't cost anything, you just play it as an exact copy. So I guess it costs as much as the insight that you're targeting, but you target an insight card in any investigator's discard pile, and you pay its resource cost, and you play it, and then you remove it from the game. You remove that event or that insight event from the game, but you're not getting any Doom, and you can target any investigator's discard pile. So that's actually.
yeah, it does cost an extra experience, and yeah, I mean, there are good and bad things about both. I mean, Eidetic Memory also only targets insights, where Divermus Mysterious targets both spell and insights.
But it's an action, right? So it's not a fast action. So there's a lot of spells. I think Ward of Protection a spell? It is, right?
yep. Mm-hmm.
You can't do that because it's going to be an action. So you want to use Ward of Protection when you draw a Treachery. So you can't target Ward of Protection or the other one that came out in this cycle that's similar.
Yeah, you can't
Deny
play
Existence.
anything that's
So
sort of reacting.
The
to
only
anything.
event that I can think of, because you have to also play it on your turn, is going to be Storm of Spirits and maybe... Yeah, the only one I can think of is Storm of Spirits. Unless something really good comes out in the next cycle or something, which is certainly possible.
Yeah, they did spoil a card that we'll talk about later in the Dream Eaters. There is a new interesting event for the Mystics that they could potentially use with this card. It's called Open Gate, and it basically lets you play it on a location, and then if you have multiples in play, you can move between the two locations as though they were connected.
Wow.
So you could use it to do something like that.
But it stays on a location, though, right?
Yes, but if you like discard it for some reason,
Then
you could
can
like
use this.
you could use it again. Yeah.
Yeah.
So there's aspects like that too, where you could discard the card to commit it for a skill test or something, and then turn around and then use the book to get it back afterward.
And do you pay it? You don't pay its. Oh, you reduce its cost by 1. Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, I guess for Doom though, it has to be something good like the one you just said. So I think going back to your first comment when you introduced this card, it's one of those cards that gets better as the card pool grows. I think you're 100% on that comment.
And speaking of Fortune or Fate, I mean, finally,
Best
Father
Mystic card ever.
Father Mateo finally gets another card that he actually may want to consider upgrading to. Nathan, how do you feel about this card?
I'm sorry, what's the card do?
That
was a joke. I brought it up earlier.
Well, you gotta
go
read
ahead.
it for the people.
For the people. Sounds so French. So, Survivor event, Fortune Blessed, cost 2 XP2, and you get a test icon of a question mark. Fast when Doom would be placed on a scenario card, max 1 per game. Cancel 1 Doom just placed on that card. Exile, Fortune, or Fate. And by the way, Exile, if I remember correctly, is where it's removed from the game for that adventure and then comes back on the subsequent.
No, you have to rebuy it.
See, that's what I had said, and someone corrected me, and I was like, I'm pretty sure you got to rebuy it.
No,
All right, well, good to
Exile
know
is a
I'm right,
rebuy.
and then wrong on the podcast.
Yeah. I mean, the exile cards are
Exile.
often very powerful. So
Yeah.
towards the end of campaigns, when survivors don't have much to spend their XP on, they start buying exile cards. And I've had a chance to play, like, this is basically like a mystifying song for survivors, and I've had a chance to play Mystifying Song a couple times, and it's won me games. So it's not the type of card that's going to come in handy every scenario, but...
So, yeah, the Exile's the rebuy, and I had that right in my head. The remove from the game is you bring it back next adventure.
I have a question. When you add Doom to the agenda, does that count as Doom being placed on a scenario card?
Yes.
So, I mean, this card can be used every scenario, I think, because at some point, if you have it in hand and the Doom's advancing, you can literally buy 12 extra actions with it. That's pretty nice.
Yeah, I mean, in multiplayer, if you need an extra turn, you're buying yourself 12 actions. Yeah, I mean, that's amazing. I've only having played Mystifying Song in solo, I know it certainly has saved my bacon in Midnight Masks, where I needed one more turn in order to clear a cultist and resign. And so playing Mystifying Song bought me that turn. So if you're playing in multiplayer and you can buy yourself 12 actions to finish the game, then yeah, this is worth 2 experience points easily.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
It's also worth noting that Father Mateo particularly also starts with 5 extra experience, so he might have the extra experience lying around towards the end of a campaign
good point.
to spend on this. I think it's neat that survivors get a card like this. It seems very on flavor for them to have a kind of card that lets you make the most out of a bad situation. That seems very Survivor to me. One thing I want to note too that I have been finding strange about all these packs is that there has still yet to be a card that heals horror for Carolyn. What is happening?
Wait a second. Are you talking about the botanist?
Yes, Carolyn Fern, the botanist. Yes.
Yes, I still haven't received any emails at carolynfernthebotanist@gmail.com. Yeah, well, there is one, which is the what's that one? The cooking knife thing,
Oh,
The
meat cleaver?
cooking knife
the meat
thing.
cleaver. Yeah, I'm blanking out. Look, Leng was blanking out earlier on card names. Now apparently it's
You do
contagious.
not talk about the Leng. Thank you very much.
The Leng's disorder is contagious. All right, you're gonna be forgetting cards
Well,
too.
that's just old age. That's what that is.
Meat Cleaver is the only one I can think of. Oh, and the level 5 that hasn't been released, the level 5 Deny Existence.
Oh, wow.
Other than that, yeah, you're right. I mean, it's really surprising that they haven't done that for her. I think some people thought you could get the Enchanted Blade, the level 3 Enchanted Blade
Yeah,
for
no, she can't
Guardians.
take it.
But yeah,
Oh,
she
right,
can't take.
because it's a weapon.
Yeah, so
Right,
it
right.
heals horror, but she can't take it. So, so yeah, just 2 cards.
But
Yeah.
but you've played Carolyn the most out of us, Vase. You know how powerful she is. She probably doesn't need any more cards, right?
No, honestly, there's already plenty of horror healing cards. You don't need so much in her decks. You need a very small amount. Because, like some people say, damage and horrors it's another resource you can play with, and if you heal someone, you may do so once or twice a game where that you
Hey.
actually need to.
Hey, Vase, spell out that word you keep saying, horror. What is that?
Yeah, horror, HORROR. Am I pronouncing it wrong?
Oh, he's just not.
I think you're doing it with A's.
He's just not putting like a hard O sound on it like you would on these
Horror.
passwords.
You know-
Horror.
There's some words that I still pronounce really weird, and like February is a word that I can't say properly.
Is that
So
a
I
day of the
say-
week? What is that?
Yeah, I say February, and people say that I don't say it right, and when they repeat it, I think I'm saying it the same way. It's just weird. I don't know. So I guess horror is another one.
Oh, you almost
Did I
said
say
it
it right?
correctly.
Oh, okay, cool. There you go. Practice makes perfect.
I'm just giving you crap. You're awesome.
Practice makes hard. Anyways, yeah.
Are there any other cards that you guys want to talk about in this Mythos pack?
No, I think that's good. I think there's some really good cards in this pack, and I'm certainly looking forward to sitting down and writing my reviews for them, because I was a little tired of the whole dual class cards and then having like 2 upgrades a piece for each of them. It's nice to sort of get back to a regular batch of cards with some level zero cards in there that everybody can play around with, and then a few, experience ones that cost experience points as well to.
Yeah, I was kind of surprised that they didn't kind of do more multi-class cards. I thought that was going to be something they would do more of throughout the cycle. I guess I'm just kind of surprised.
It is surprising.
Well, I think they test the waters. I'm sure we'll see more, down the line. I have no insider information, but I mean, once they've introduced the idea, I think we'll see more of them.
I think they did miss the boat on not requiring the original dual class card before you can upgrade it. I think that would have been a really nice touch. Even though it adds an extra requirement, it would make it more thematically appropriate, I think.
Yeah, I would agree on a thematic standpoint, but I think it's kind of strange to enforce on just one card.
I mean,
One
Seekers
set of
have
cards.
had that kind of mechanic from the very beginning, or from Dunwich at least, when they have a bunch of cards that they can only upgrade. They can only purchase if they upgrade from a particular level 1 or level 0 card, like Archaic Glyphs or whatever.
Yeah, but those usually have some sort of like condition or action that you have to do in order to do that. There's like something else that's added on top of it. It's not like, it's not just a restriction on the card by its inherent nature, if that makes sense.
Yeah, I see what you're getting at.
You're not restricting it just because it's a multi-class card. But anyway,
and this might be too soon to bring up, but do we want to talk about Bonded, since they've added that other new mechanism for cards.
Well, we can talk. We can talk about that when we talk about
when it
Dream
comes.
Eaters, I think.
Well, speaking of the Dreamlands,
Dun dun dun.
yeah, FFG announced the 5th expansion for the Arkham Horror card game, the Dream Eaters expansion. Man, why don't you go ahead and start us off with that? What's the theme, and what's the potential story behind this scenario?
Well, judging by the box, I mean, we're going to the Dreamlands, which is one of my favorite settings because that's where the men from Leng are from, and the Plateau of Leng, so it's like a homecoming of sorts for me. And I'm crossing my fingers that we'll see a Man from Leng encounter card at some point. Judging from the box, it looks like Atlak Nacha is going to be the great old one that we're facing, the spider god who spins a web that connects all the various, I think connects the Dreamlands with the waking world or whatnot. Sounds like there is going to be not one, not two, but 3 campaigns. There'll be a mini campaign set in the Dreamlands, a mini campaign set in the waking world, and each of those will have one scenario in the box, as well as 3 of the packs will be each 3 of the 6 packs during the forthcoming cycle will be part of that, and then you also have the option of mashing them all together and playing a massive 8 scenario campaign.
Huh. Well, that's interesting. It's also worth noting here, the article also mentions that this Deluxe expansion is going to have 95 scenario cards and 56 player cards. So that's going to be the largest expansion to date for the card game. So that's one thing
really
of note
exciting.
too. Yeah.
Well, I think if you're going to do 2 mini campaigns in a box, you would have to, because a lot of those encounter cards are not going to overlap. I don't think you're going to get as much overlap as you would with some of the other sets.
Mm-hmm. Right. Absolutely.
It's good to see that FFG is not limiting themselves by their own precedents that they've set. You know, they're willing to take chances, and
it's also Matt Newman, who hates to be predictable, going, "Ha, a twist."
very true.
Yeah, I think he puts on his best M. Night Shyamalan every night when he designs these scenarios. What do you guys think about them doing this exclusive pre-order art print thing too? Have they done things like this in the past? I forget off the top of my head.
No, I think this is the first one, but I know FFG's shipping is outrageous to the Plateau, so I will never be ordering anything from them. Unfortunately.
The art things are not new for them, but the exclusivity of it is. So they had a similar thing when you ordered the calendars for this year. You got some art prints from the art in the calendar, and that's something that seems to be around the same thing that they're doing now. But the calendars were only through their website. It's not like they had distribution through game stores. In this case, it's kind of, I don't know. It's kind of a diss to local game stores to do that, because a lot of players are going to order, especially like fans that are into collecting everything that the game has to offer, are definitely going to order from FFG directly just to get those exclusives. So,
yeah, I agree with you. I think it's kind of weird that they wouldn't offer something like this to local game stores. Nathan, what do you think, being a sales manager of a local game store?
I have 2 thoughts, and one is A, yeah, it's kind of shitty, but B, I also get where they're coming from, where they want to like find out the demand or kind of get a finger on the pulse of the community by having them go directly through that. And it's also a way to directly find out how many of those exclusives they need to make. Whereas if they didn't do that and overshot by a lot, they might have extra product. But I don't know. I don't think they would have done wrong by having to go to game stores in general. They could always reverse it and also have something exclusive to game stores during the invocation too.
That would be nice. I do hope they do something like that. And now that you mention invocations, I think invocations are a nice touch for local game stores to get additional
Right.
traffic. So, you know, that they haven't completely forgotten about the local game stores. So we do have to give them credit for that.
Yeah, but hopefully they don't make these like the calendar art prints where they double side them. So they say you're getting 8, but really you get 4 double sided prints. Hopefully they make them single sided and you can actually display all 8 of them. So that would be one touch I would appreciate personally. But
Good point.
yeah, what do you guys think about Luke Robinson, the investigator that was spoiled with this article? He's a mystic investigator. He's the dreamer. He has 4 willpower, 3 intellect, 2 might, or 2 combat, and 3 agility. He has the dreamer, drifter, and wayfarer trait. And he says, you begin the game with the gate box in play. You may play one event each turn as if you were at a connecting location and engaged with an enemy at that location. And his elder sign is +1. Place 1 charge on Gatebox, and routing him off, he has 5 health and 9 sanity. And then to read the Gatebox real quick here too, it's a 3 cost asset. Comes into play with 3 charges, and then has a fast action that reads exhaust and spend a charge. Disengage from each enemy engaged with you, and search your bonded cards for Dreamgate, Wondrous Journey, put it into play, and move to it.
Thank you for reading all that out. By the way, did anyone read his story in the Investigators of Arkham book?
I have to reread it.
It's
not.
good. It's very, very trippy. It's like going to a Fish concert back in the day, eating some brownies, forgetting you had the brownies and doing more brownies, and then doing a headstand on a keg. It's very trippy, which actually, in a way, kind of gives me an extra sense of excitement because as much as I enjoyed that quick story, I'm looking forward to seeing what they do with it.
He seems really fun, but I think really campaign specific. I'm not quite sure how effective his ability is going to be in
Sure.
certain.
I think he's like your mobile mystic. He is like he can move all over the place fast.
Kind of like a Rita Young from Mystics.
Like if
Only
you
even
play
more.
if you play Luke in Forgotten Age, man, you will just crush it. I think because he'll get to the chamber, he'll just pop into his little pocket dimension, and then he zips back to the entrance. If you're playing Heart of the Elders, like you can be as far from the entrance as you need to be, and then just pop into your pocket dimension and pop back. Like it's basically like he has like an elusive on demand.
Yeah, scenarios where you have to move around a lot, he's going to be really powerful.
Yeah, but he's the only thing that sort of disappoints me about him is that he's still one of these willpower mystics who uses willpower to fight, investigate, and evade, and he doesn't. So he's not really breaking new ground in that respect.
What do you think about?
I agree with that criticism.
What do you think about that ability where it says you can play an event at a different location, and you can assume he's engaged with an enemy at that location? What's your interpretation of that?
Well, I assume that it's just meaning that, say you pop him into his pocket dimension with the gate box, he can basically draw into the flame anywhere at any time. But if he is considered to be engaged with enemies, he would take an attack of opportunity trying to do that.
That's what I was getting at. I was thinking the same thing.
So I think that's sort of just there to balance him a little bit, because being able to, like, his gate box is a free trigger, so he can basically move for free and then play Drawn to the Flame anywhere whenever he needs it, and grab like 2 clues. So that engage prevents him. It doesn't prevent him from doing it, but it does make him like he will get attacked if he didn't have that. Say you were you had a location that had, say, a couple of enemies on it, he pops to his pocket dimension, plays Drawn to the Flame, and gets away scot-free. He doesn't have to take any attacks. This way he can't do that. And I think it may also be important for... I can't think of any events offhand that... no, it would be... He can play things like Blinding Light, because it's an event, so he can basically pop to his pocket dimension and then evade an enemy with Blinding Light. I think Bind Monster, Banish, stuff like that he can play.
That's really cool.
The other card that I was sort of looking at with him that looks actually quite interesting now is Mind Wipe, because he basically can go anywhere he needs to and mind wipe an enemy at a neighboring location. He doesn't have to be next to it, which basically will blank an enemy for a turn.
I also like how he can pop anywhere and engage an enemy, so if you need something to be engaged for you to run through or do like a Hail Mary towards the end, you could tie something up, right?
I don't think it works. I think he's considered to be engaged, but he's not actually engaged.
Kind of like the massive keyword.
Gotcha.
Yeah, I think it works that way. Like he would be considered to, say, if I'll just use Diana for example. Say Diana is engaged with an enemy, Luke moves into his pocket dimension. He wouldn't be considered to be engaged with that enemy if he played, say, I can't think of a good example. Like, he doesn't pull the engagement off Diana. He doesn't pull the enemy off her. She is still engaged, and he is still engaged.
You know, I was thinking the same thing as Nathan. Like, do you pull the enemy with you? Do you bring him over? I think
no, because the gate box says that the enemies can't go into his pocket dimension.
Well, you're also just considering, sorry to interrupt, but you're also just considering his on-class events. He could have an off-class that has events that you'd want to play from a connecting location. Maybe
Good
he
point.
has,
I suspect he's going to be straight Mystic. I don't think he's going to be a...
You don't think they will give him a trait or something?
I don't think they're going to give him a second class. I think that he's probably going to be like a Kachi more than, say, an Agnes. I have nothing to base that on, but it just seems like, given the cards that he has available to him right now, I would be quite happy to build a deck around him just with Mystic cards.
Yeah, he seems pretty strong already.
Yeah.
Just with Mystic cards, like he said.
It's like here he gets to play elusive at least 3 times per game on demand. I mean, that in itself is pretty good. And you haven't even started to fool around with his other tricks at that point.
Does his signature, is it a signature asset, or is it?
It's a signature asset. It starts the game in play.
Does it have charges or?
3 charges.
Yes.
But if you pull an Elder Sign, he gets another charge. I think he could probably play Recharge on it.
Enraptured.
It's an item, so he could play Recharge. Enraptured, I think, will add a charge to it. So there's no shortage of ways to get additional charges on this thing. So, yeah, it could get pretty... His weakness is pretty... potentially pretty painful, though, because if you draw... I'll just read out his weakness here. It's detached from reality, weakness, madness, revelation. If Dreamgate Wondrous Journey is already in play, flip it over. Otherwise, you search your bonded cards for Dreamgate Pointless Reality and put it into play. In either case, you disengage from each enemy engaged with you and move to Dreamgate. So the flip side of his Dreamgate is a 6 shroud location with 0 clues, and he can't move away from it. So if you pull this detached from reality during the upkeep phase, you'll basically get tossed into the Dreamgate, and you can't move away. He's only got 3 intellect, so investigating a 6 shroud location is going to take some doing. So there's a chance you could just miss your whole turn and take 2 horror. Wow. If you pull his weakness, which sucks. Like, losing an entire turn where you can't do anything.
That's
You just sit there and spin your wheels, and then you take 2 horror. He does get to, I think it does let him move.
It does.
Just looking at his,
yeah,
at the end, he does get to move
field.
anywhere else. So, but yeah, it's pretty painful for that turn. If you basically just take him out of the game for a turn, I don't think there's another weakness that does anything. Now, he can still play events at locations, I believe. He just can't.
Yes, he can do that with his...
No, he can't. It's not connected to any other location, so he is basically just cut off. So you're essentially losing
brutal.
an investigator
wow,
for a turn
wow.
in multiplayer.
That's brutal. Wow, this
It's
is
like,
very brutal.
Like I think in solo, it's actually not. I mean, you're losing a turn unless you can.
It still sucks.
Which sucks, but in multiplayer, like you're losing an investigator for. It's like, oh, Luke, you'll do this in this next turn, and then suddenly you draw your weakness. It's like, no, actually, you're not. And then I guess potentially, like, isn't it in the Dunwich Legacy cycle where they'll shuffle your weaknesses back into your deck, so you could potentially draw this several times per game.
Oh, that would be brutal. Ugh.
Yeah,
well,
I mean, first turn, get sucked into your dream dimension and get stuck there for a turn.
Have it shuffled back in, do it again later on. Ugh.
Yeah, it's. But I quite like him. I mean, he looks like he's a lot of fun. He's going to be bouncing around all over the place, and I think in scenarios like the Doom of Estley, he makes that one look pretty straightforward. If you can just get to the end, and you've got as long as you've got a charge left, you win.
Yeah, like you said, he has 3 elusives every game.
Yeah.
And
it's not exactly the same as elusive, but it's pretty close.
It's pretty close, yeah.
So, elusive was tagged by the list of taboos, so.
Yeah, so it's needless to say that that's a very good ability.
Yeah.
But yeah, was there anything else of note that you guys wanted to mention about the Dream Eaters?
I really like the artwork. Kind of looking through a few of the things here, like this. One of the prints that they give you is a white cat. It looks really cool, and then there's this gigantic skull with ethereal birds flying around it. That looks really cool, and then of course the box cover looks awesome.
Yeah, the only other two things I'd mention is that there's the other bonded card. That's that Crystallizer of Dreams. It's a rogue card, 1 cost asset with a willpower, and as an additional cost to play the card, you've got to put the Guardian of the Crystallizer into your deck. So I assume that's some sort of weakness. So that's an interesting ability where it's like, hey, you get to play this really cool card, but you've got to shuffle a weakness into your deck to do it. And then the Open Gate has the Myriad keyword, which I don't know what that means, whether there'll be more than 2 copies in the pack, because to use the Open Gate, you have to have 2 of them on the table, which seems like to have 2 in your deck would be tough to play unless you've got more than 2 copies in your deck.
Mm-hmm.
Or...
And it says group limit 3 in play, which probably, I would assume, implies that, there is access to multiple copies.
Well, but that could be just if you're playing with multiple mystics, right? The same problem you end up with
Delve Too Deep.
Delve Too Deep, where you end up having 6 copies played, and so that caps it at 3. So but I mean, it's the game text is investigator may move between any 2 locations with attached Open Gate as if the locations were connected.
So here's my theory on this. A lot of people are speculating what you think, Leng, which is that you can have more than 2 copies. I think that it must be something where when you play it, other investigators can also play the card.
Or maybe you search your deck for the other copy and put it into play.
Yeah, it could be that. That's
But I
another
mean,
good one.
that seems too good.
I was gonna say that
It
seems
does,
really good.
but the
seems
card
way
also
too good.
seems almost
For one resource.
I could see maybe like
Yeah, that's true.
playing it and getting the other copy in your hand, which would then require you to still go to the other location you want to play it at. But even that still seems really good.
Well, here's the thing. So looking up the definition, right, of myriad, a countless or extremely great number. I mean, that's the number one.
Yeah, no, I think it's going to be. There's going to be more than. There might be 3 copies.
And in
It might be
classical history,
like a Painted World where you get 3 copies of it in the pack instead of 2, just to boost your odds of actually drawing 2 copies during a game. Maybe it's 3 or 4, I don't know, but it seems like that you'd need more than just 2 because you know the chance of you playing one open gate and the other open gate being like in the last 5 cards of your deck and you sitting there basically like you've wasted an action and it's never gonna pay off. I mean, it's an amazing card. Again, it totally hoses Doom of Estley, where if you're playing 4-player, if you get lucky, drop an open gate on the entrance, go to the end and drop an open gate on the end, and then it's a cakewalk.
yeah, there's got to be something more to it. I'm thinking it's more than just having 3 cards, because if you play just one, those on the other side of the token, if you're playing just one and the other one's stuck at the bottom of your deck, Mystics don't really have the card pool to search for another copy like Seekers do.
No.
So, it seems like very situational on whether you're able to draw 2 copies. So either, like you said, you get to search for the other copy right away, or there's something more to it,
Yeah. And the only other thing I'd like to mention is that something that I've been predicting forever on my YouTube channel has finally happened. We're finally getting swarms.
Yeah.
So all those cards that are great against more than one enemy are really going to get their work out. What was that one knife they released? Like, not the
Trench
survival knife. Trench knife. Yeah,
knife.
It's Trench Knife's day in the sun at last. So they've spoiled the ancient Zug enemy,
time.
which is basically doesn't. I mean, it's a 3/3/3 enemy and it's aloof, but at the start of the enemy phase, if Ancient Zug is ready, you have to add 1 swarm card to each swarming Zug enemy in play. Now, I'm sort of assuming that means you're going to end up with like a bunch of 1/1 enemies that you're going to have to deal with. So anything that allows you to take down multiple enemies is going to be like Storm of Spirits is going to be awesome. The 45 Thompson, the Rogue version, that'll be awesome. Like any card that lets you deal with multiple enemies at once is going to be worth its weight in gold this cycle.
And it's going to be a nightmare for solo players.
And
Yeah. Maybe you'll have like swarms of Zoogs and then swarms of cats fighting each other. That might be. Maybe you'll get some cats. Maybe investigators will get like a card that lets them bring out a bunch of like a swarm of ally cats. That might be interesting.
That'd be cool.
God.
Zoe's gonna be a rich girl too.
Possibly, yep.
Yeah. So I'm really looking forward to this cycle. I think it's going to be cool. I mean, they also spoiled Tony Morgan in the French. Asmodee France spoiled the rogue investigator, who's Tony Morgan. I believe he's the bounty hunter.
I'm excited for him.
And he's got 5 combat, which is our first big combat rogue. So he will be interesting to play. And I think I haven't seen an English translation of his ability, but I think it's like similar to the Hawkeye folding camera, where like you kill enemies and you place tokens on his signature asset, and then once you gain enough tokens, you get special abilities.
There's this
like
one Discord server for an inferior podcast where they translated it.
Wow.
On a French speaker. So they said that it's like bounty tokens that you get to add onto enemies. So that's kind of cool because it fits in with the rogue thing. Like if the bounty tokens get you resources, then he's got his resource accumulation right there, and he's a combat-centric rogue. I'm really interested in seeing what he can do.
Yeah.
And I just like the flavor in general for the Dreamlands. I think that's going to be a ton of fun.
Yeah, they can do pretty much anything with that. I mean, there's so many stories you could tell in the Dreamlands that
They could do snakes. They could do ghosts.
My
They could do
only-
theater.
the only concern I have, and
Ghouls.
it's really a minor one, is just by splitting them into the mini campaigns and releasing like 3 packs for each. I don't know whether that's gonna potentially confuse new players, or like if one of the campaigns is inferior to the other, like you'd have to wait, like one pack comes out and then you have to wait another 2 months before you get the pack for the campaign that you're interested in. That's, they've done a really good job of making all the campaigns really interesting, so I don't think that will happen. But I'd hate to see it where like the campaign set in the Dreamlands is like awesome, and then the campaign set in real life is kind of not as good, and then you end up waiting for packs, or players are confused, like, okay, I bought pack 1, what is the next, and then I bought pack 2, but they're not part of the same. I mean, you can play them all together as an 8-part thing as well, so perhaps it's just it'll all work out.
I guess we'll have to see. Yeah, I'm
Yeah.
skeptical of that too.
I'm always concerned about new players whenever a new cycle comes out. Like Forgotten Age really had me worried that, it would turn a lot of new players off because of the difficulty. And this one, I hope that it is something where they can work it out in the wording and the phrasing, where they make it real simplified, because new players are already overwhelmed enough, and as new cycles come out, new mechanics come out, it just gets bigger and bigger. And it's hard for the developers because they got to keep it interesting for the hardcore players, but they also have to make it simple enough for new players to be able to get in.
Yeah, I think Matt does a good job at designing mechanics that are interesting but simple enough to grasp for newer players. At least that's my opinion. But yeah, moving on. Nathan, Nathan, why don't you go ahead?
No, hold on. That was just such a fun segue. It's almost like you cut yourself off. And then my next thought.
It was, just a lack of a way to transition. But anyway, Nathan.
Hey, Henry Wan would be hella proud with you.
Thank you, Mr. Wan. Oh, speaking of Henry Wan, we did actually have someone comment on the YouTube channel for the podcast. Yeah, someone played Henry Wan and had the whole setup going, where they played him in a Jim Culver deck, no less. So I'm sure, Nathan, you're all about that already.
Of course.
Yep. So we got him down. Had protective incantations. Rigged the bag, and boom. Used Henry 1 to gain a whole bunch of resources and a whole bunch of cards, so...
They call that...
So there you go, man. It happened. Yep, it happened.
Fushload in the Arkham terminology. So, were we going into the trivia, or are we going into the fan made? Which one do we want to do first?
Fantastic.
Hold on, let's take a phone call from a Patreon. Wait for it. Alright, so which one do we want to do?
Why don't we start with trivia time first?
Trivia time. Excellent. Party on. I just made this up. Like I'm going with the... Alright, so here we are at trivia time. I have selected basically a card from each of the 5 factions. And they deal with costs of the item, experience, or the abilities of items. And there is a couple spells in there too. So here we go. First one. And you can play along at home, in the car, comatose, in a jail cell somewhere, whatever you want to do. Okay, as we all know, the Colt Vest Pocket item, weapon, firearm, illicit, which costs 2, gives you a bunch of fun stuff when you shoot it. You get +1 fight, +1 damage. Question, how much ammo does this give you?
5 ammo.
Oh, you got it.
All right. Well, that wasn't very exciting when people get it right. So next, that is correct, by the way. Okay, next one. Everybody can answer except for Nate. You can answer if you get to them. All right. The next one, lightning gun, 6 cost, 5 experience, has a intellect and a fight icon, uses 3 ammo. This attack deals +2 damage. Question: how much fight does it give?
+5.
All right. Nate is somehow eavesdropping. Oh, I'm looking for a camera above me to see.
No, man.
No.
I'm telling you, I know these. I was ready.
All right. So, the people at home have 0 time to answer if all you East Coastians just chime in with your crap. Okay, next one. It is The Sixth Sense. Yes, it is the most played spell in the game that allows you to investigate using head instead of book. Question: when playing the spell, how many charges do you get?
3.
0.
It's a trick question. It doesn't come into play with charges.
Both Leng and Nate got it, but Leng got it first. Trick question: there are 0 charges. Excellent job. I do like Vase quickly answering. Next, Feed the Mind. All right, Feed the Mind uses 3 secrets, costs 2 to bring out, exhaust Feed the Mind and spend 1 secret, etc., etc. How many experience points does Feed the Mind cost?
1 experience point.
I think it costs 3.
Everyone's Googling it. Maybe
Well, the interesting thing is Vase cheated the whole first episode, and now we have Nate cheating the entire second episode. 3 is correct, although we do have honorable mention to all of our Canadian contributors in the form of the man from Leng. Okay.
Well, yeah, I mean, I meant to say 3.
Sure you did. All right.
I said 1, but it's my nephew.
I'm sorry,
my
Vase,
nephew Juan,
Could you clear
and
the
he's
channel?
3 years old.
My
My
machete
apologies.
needs you to clear the channel. All right. Last question. So everything's been easy to this point. Can we agree? Because people keep on interrupting me with the correct answer. So now we have newspaper. Frank Brinkley's favorite thing to exclaim on one of his podcasts. In the card newspaper, I'm not even going to talk about what it does or the upgrades you get with the level 2. I would like to talk about the fact that the paper, the Tribune, has 2 predominant words for the most part on the paper. One deals with a criminal, the other one deals with something going on during the time period. For 1,000 points, can you get both of these answers?
Ooh,
No,
that's a tough one.
not even for 1,000 points.
What about if I said I love you 3,000?
Is this in the art?
Yes. So once again, one of the names deals with a criminal of the time period. Another name deals with something that was predominant during this time period.
I'm going to assume Capone and
Correct.
something about Prohibition.
You can just go suck a rock.
Wow.
Wow,
that one was a complete shot in the dark.
No way.
All right.
That
I'm
was
going to
not a
now
shot in the
officially
dark.
email you Anthrax because you're pissing me off, Nate. I sit there carefully designing this to stump literally all 3 of you. Whatever. I'm done with it. It's fine. Going on to the more important thing, the thing that Nate won't know anything about, a fan made. So,
Oh, I see how it is. Whatever.
here we are with, congratulations. Go ahead and write to Innkeeper Vase at the Twisted Tentacle Inn, and he'll give you something. We have Happy's Funhouse, which is a pretty creepy episode done by Nathan Sauter, Sauter. And I actually talked with Nate. He
Not me.
chatted with me. Well, Nathan, he chatted with me after he had a kiddo, which is fantastic. And we talked about possibly doing a collaboration or doing a couple changes down the way. But the concept with the Happy's Funhouse is very simply There's a carnival that's kind of cropped up at the edge of Arkham, and several people have gone missing. So, of course, you and your intrepid investigators go off to kind of find out what's up. So I'm going to read just a bit of the intro here to set the mood. Most of the stories surrounding Dark's carnival in town are what draws such large crowds to the regularly empty field just outside of town. In fact, compared to the religious atmosphere of the town, religious, the liberal circus would appear a welcome respite from the more conservative city limits. But some of those stories are slowly making those crowds dwindle. It's those few stories that have reached your ears that have brought you to the Dark's carnival near closing time. The building these stories bring into question is on the outskirts of the circus, a small, dilapidated building with a small, hand-painted sign that reads, Happy's Funhouse. It appears empty and deserted, but if the stories are to be believed, it is anything but deserted. Despite the dingy building telling you to leave, the overlarge doors are inviting you to enter. You ignore your gut and the dingy building and listen to your conscience, and the overlarge doors. After all, you tell yourself, it's a small building. This shouldn't take terribly long. And of course, what ensues is a madcap adventure full of clowns, different types of funhouse mechanisms. Of course, you've got almost a Pennywise feel from the main Happy clown himself. But overall, a fun run. Very atmospheric. I think on YouTube I play the dark carnival or creepy clown music in the background, which really fits it. And as I mentioned to some of the people here before we got going today, I actually spiced up some of the clowns in the adventure and gave them all unique abilities, which is similar to what they did with Undimensioned and Unseen, I believe, in the Return to Dunwich. And Nate, I believe, had brought that up, which is a very good point. It just gives a little more flavor.
Yeah, it makes each enemy feel unique among the rest of them rather than them all being the same, which is cool.
Yeah,
it
adds
like a really
the replay, adds the flavor, and in addition to that, of course, if you want to go check it out, you can go check it out at ArkhamCentral.com, where a lot of the fan-mades, if not all the fan-mades, are posted for you to print off or have printed at a studio. And I'd also like to point out one last thing as far as fan-mades go. I talked with Nick, I believe Nicholas Corey is his full name, from the Mythos Buster podcast. He's done the Winter Winds campaign, and I believe the first one in that cycle is Frozen Tracks. I've done that one already once, but I do want to play that and the sequel again at least, so that we can talk about that for a future episode. But just a lot of great content out there, a lot of people being passionate about the games and giving it their own twist. And Vase, I think, how close is yours to getting done?
I am, sorry, I was on mute and didn't realize it. I am on about 2 weeks away, and I will be giving away copies, and I definitely want to send them to you guys so you guys can play the scenario.
Oh, wow, you've been speeding through that thing.
Oh, man, it's been so much work. I mean, but yeah, it's so much work. But the test plays got me a ton of great feedback and truly invaluable feedback to have someone test play it that you don't play with regularly, so you can really get a feel for what things are missing, what you need to change. So yeah, a couple of weeks away.
So possibly by next episode is what you're saying?
Most definitely.
Nice. Well, man, you had recently gave me a chat in the Discord about picking up Call of Cthulhu again after a long while. How's that going for you? And what sparked your interest in wanting to get back into Call of Cthulhu?
Well, actually, I've been running D&D for my boys, and I used to run Call of Cthulhu for friends as well, and it's been a while since I've played it, and I've wanted to thinking about getting back into it a little bit more seriously, and then So I bought the books so far, and I've been reading up on the changes between 7th edition and I think the last time I played it was 5th or maybe 4th. I can't remember. And yeah, there's a few fairly significant differences, and going back and just trying to find a scenario that I want to run, and was reading through some of the old scenarios and realizing how badly written some of them are and how difficult they're not very easy to run without a lot of tinkering.
Yeah, I'd say that's a fair criticism. You need a decent amount of prep time ahead of time.
Yeah, I know I was reading a couple, and it was just sort of like the leaps in logic that are required by the players to sort of connect all the dots would be there'd be a lot of I think there'd be a lot of idea rolls being made just to try to figure out what was going on. I mean, there's some really interesting scenario ideas there, but they're just not quite as tuned as I think they could be, and would benefit from a little bit of extra work. But I think that's the case with any scenario. I know the one I've been playing with my boys is I've done a fair, not a ton of tweaking, but just trying to make the themes a little bit more interesting and draw connections between things that aren't sort of mentioned in the module itself. So
yeah, and I think it, especially with a investigation game, you're gonna have to do a lot of tweaking to whatever adventure or scenario you're gonna run. Just given the nature of how your players may act or their professions or what have you. There's a lot of variables that go into that. But
yeah, I think one of my issues always with Cthulhu was having played a lot of D&D where there's sort of a lot of forward momentum where it's pretty clear where you're going next. It's like, okay, we cleared this room, let's go to the next room, we'll clear that, and because Cthulhu is pretty lethal if you play it like D&D, you don't really have that combat option, so you have to look at other things a lot, and I think some of the scenarios that I was looking at, they just don't really draw the connections as well as they need to. It's sort of
do you think they do that on purpose, or do you think that that's a fault?
I think it's a fault. I think some of them it's just like, I know at the one I was reading, it was sort of like, okay, the players will they'll discover this. I think they had to make a connection between like these letters that they'd received and this other clue, and I'm just like, how would anybody make this connection? Like, it's just, there's no sort of there's no link between the two of them, and yet the module sort of assumes like they'll read these letters and go, aha, this is so and so, and that's who we need to go get. And it's like, but that person isn't going by that name anymore. So it's like, well, how would they even know to put two and two together? And then it was just sort of like the way it ended was very, I just felt it was very anticlimactic. It was sort of just like they took all the horror out of it, and it was just like, okay, you just go get this guy and then everything is okay, sort of thing. I'm like, well, that's kind of,
yeah, I think that's fair of a lot of the older scenarios, especially of like the ones from the late 80s and early 90s when they were, I feel like, still kind of getting their bearings on how to write better scenarios. But
I also think, having watched a lot of D&D streams lately and stuff like that, it's I think the nature of role playing has changed a little bit as well. Certainly from the time I was playing D&D seriously, where it was, it was a lot more about hack and slash, and now it seems like the narrative plays a lot more of an important role. And if you look back at some of those older D&D or Call of Cthulhu modules, the narrative isn't quite there. Like, they sort of just present a bunch of stuff to you, and it's really up to the game master to flesh it out.
Yeah, I mean, that's even true of like older scenarios, even like Curse of Strahd, or I guess Castle Ravenloft, for going back to the original AT&T version of it. But yeah, I mean, that scenario is basically like, oh, Strahd invites you to his castle and kidnaps a girl. Yeah. So
It's funny. I got for D&D. I got the what was that one? The tavern one. I forget what it's called.
the Gates of the Yawning Portal.
The Yawning Portal. Where it's like all these classic dungeons, and I'm looking through them, and I'm like, man, these are pretty like poorly made compared to the adventures from today's batch. Like it's crazy. Like something like White Plume Mountain, it's known as a classic, and I'm reading through it, and I'm like, this doesn't make sense. Why would this creature be here? And in the next room, there's this other type of creature that's. It just doesn't make any sense with it. You're just supposed to go through it and fight these things, just because they're level appropriate. So yeah.
Well, I am looking forward to eventually running a game at some point of Cthulhu and possibly streaming it, possibly recording it for posterity, just to see how bad a game master I am, and perhaps we'll find some willing test subjects out there who are willing to.
I mean, I'm definitely willing to at least
to run the gauntlet.
Yeah, I'm
I
definitely
know
willing
that-
to play.
I know the last time we played, we had a guy, and I think he ended up turning into a cannibal at some point for some reason, but we've always had a lot of fun playing Cthulhu. So
Yeah, one thing I would recommend is I would take a look at Chaosium's starter set that they recently released that has 3 adventures in it, and you can pick up the PDF for like $10 on their website, and those have a lot of insight on tips for running the game, in addition to being able to quickly learn the game and a bunch of pre-generated characters. So that's a nice way, and those scenarios are much better written, I would say, than the scenarios of old.
yeah.
Yeah, and they do a good job of recreating those scenarios too, because one of the scenarios in that box is an original release from, I think it was 86, and they redid it. So if you're interested, I would check that out too.
Yeah.
Is Call of Cthulhu as complex as, say, like a Delta Green? As the new Delta Green? Like, there's the storylines and all that? Or is it more pulpy?
So Call of Cthulhu has, obviously, Call of Cthulhu, which is the bread and butter for Chaosium in terms of that release. And then Pulp Cthulhu takes it in kind of a, obviously more pulp direction. And those adventures feel more like an Indiana Jones movie, whereas something from original Call of Cthulhu would feel more traditional Lovecraftian, so to speak. It's less like whipping out your gun and shooting Cthulhu in the face, and more like library use and stuff like that.
Mysteries unraveling.
Yeah. So that would be the biggest difference. And I would say, in terms of depth of lore, you can make it as deep as you want to. Whereas, like, Delta Green is like a particular, set of, it's like a particular organization within, a complex, convoluted U.S. government. Whereas, you can make Call of Cthulhu more or less as convoluted as you want to, I feel. As long as it all makes sense and your players are having fun, I think that's obviously the most important part. But yeah, is there any other games you guys quickly wanted to mention before we wrap up tonight's episode?
No, I did want to shout out a podcast that deals with Arkham Horror, the card game, if that's okay. I wanted permission.
Yeah, yes, sorry. I was muted there too.
Yeah, they're called the Archivos de Arkham. It's a Spanish language podcast that deals with Arkham Horror, the card game. So you can say they're the Spanish language Mythos busters. I've been in contact a few months ago with Pepe. He's one of the guys there, and they're from Spain, so their Spanish is very lispy and full of spits.
Hey, Vase,
Yeah,
does Pepe have a machete?
I'll ask
Is
him.
that insulting, or at the very least insensitive?
That's no,
Not insensitive at all. I just wanted to say the two things that Vase like saying all the time with his special accent. That's all.
Oh, that's too good. I gotta ask him that. But I don't know that they have too many machetes in Spain. It's not like South America, you know. But
Yeah, you're not
Okay.
like
You
wiping
obviously
off
haven't been
champagne
to
and stuff
Spain.
like that.
right, yeah, I've never been there, so I can't say for sure. But their podcast is really fun. They use like this cheesy like dance music in between sections, and it's really funny. That the guys have really good chemistry, and they're fun, and they obviously are really into the game, and yeah, I mean, if any Spanish speaking listeners, if you want an additional podcast to listen to, they put out content very regularly. Sometimes once a month, sometimes 3 or 4 times a month, and
And I
just
might have missed it. How many episodes or how much content do they have out?
oh, they at this point they have over 20 episodes.
Oh, cool.
Yeah, they're pretty consistent, and it's it's the same game we play. It's just the Spanish language one. So if any of our listeners have the Spanish version of the game, this is a great podcast to get into because they do have a really, really interesting take on the player cards. They go over kind of the same things that we go over and some of the other podcasts go over, but in Spanish.
So just real quick, because I don't know enough. Are you bilingual?
Am I? Yeah, yeah. Spanish is
So
my first language. I'm actually kind of trilingual. I speak Italian too, but I've
oh
forgotten
wow.
a lot of it. Yeah.
So if you okay, so cool. So if you played the game in Spanish, you would have. God, I just wonder how much the atmosphere would change.
It makes Forgotten Age a lot cooler, that's for sure.
That's very true, actually.
Oh
I don't know.
yeah.
It's interesting to think about because when I was in Japan, and playing Magic, I was learning a lot of Japanese, and the Kamigawa cycle had just come out. So to read
Oh.
about the Kami and the Oni and the Kitsune people and stuff, and read it in Japanese with the katakana hiragana was really atmospheric. So I, like you said, the Forgotten Age would be really neat to play in Spanish. I wish I knew more Spanish.
Yeah, I mean, a lot of the character names are, but the thing is with the Forgotten Age, it's not so much Spanish. A lot of the characters are more like native in Mexico and Central America. So a lot of the words
Yeah, that
like
makes sense.
Tecnotitlan and a lot of these other these like Ichtaka, these are not regular Spanish words. These are words that are more of like the natives down in Mexico and Guatemala. So it's not the same per se, although there are, at least in some of the scenarios where you're in Mexico City, present day or 1920s and 30s Mexico City, then you can get a little bit more flavor from that. But for the most part, it deals with more the natives than the actual Spanish speakers.
Yeah, that's cool.
What about you, man? Do you have anything you want to give a shout out to before we end tonight's podcast?
No, I don't think so. I've got. I'll have a preview of the Dream Eater cycle probably coming out sometime this week, so stay tuned for that. And of course, there'll be more playthroughs and reviews, and I'm trying to figure out how I can stream more frequently, so I'm busy looking into that, and it's all so complicated.
So complicated.
You could just have like a GoPro on you and stream on the go. Like, I'm going to go to the grocery store now, but in the meanwhile, let's talk about the new investigators.
That's right. Well, it's just the one thing they talk a lot about in streaming is that, I mean, you want to be engaging with your viewers and being able to chat with them. And the problem I have right now is I can't see my chat, so it makes it awfully difficult to do that. So I'm trying to figure out the best way of doing that, and I thought there was one solution, and it turns out that solution may not exist anymore, and so we'll see.
Yeah, maybe someone who joins our Discord can help you out, set that up. Maybe there's some tech nerd among our listeners that can help you out with that.
Yeah, because I mean, if I'm going to play, I might as well stream it. People seem to enjoy it, and it's always I always enjoy talking to the people who tune in, and it'd be nice just to be able to mesh them a little more seamlessly than I can at the moment. So,
do you stream from your computer?
yep.
Do you have YouTube on your cell phone?
Yep.
There you go. Put your cell phone in front of you during your
Yeah, but see,
stream.
I really want it on my screen so I can just see it. That's I don't want to have to look. I've tried streaming with like another computer beside me so I can watch the monitor there, but I find like I have to take my eyes off the screen. So I think if it was like just on my screen and I could see it as it happened, that would be
Yeah,
ideal.
you can create it as an overlay.
Yeah.
I'm sure of that.
I'm just trying to figure out how to do the best way to do that, and then go to it.
Well, very cool.
But as for Arkham Horror, no, I'm just going to keep on doing what I do.
Very nice, very nice. Nathan, you said you had something?
Well, yeah, I had spoken with people before the podcast, and Vase is local, so I can coordinate this with him, but I think I want to do something fairly big at the store that I help manage, Guardian Games in Portland, Oregon, probably towards the end of October, like the very last Sunday, which I want to say is the 27th. I don't know exactly when Arkham Nights is going to hit, but I mean, not a ton of people are going to have the time or the funds to necessarily fly across country for that anyway. But for people in the Pacific Northwest or anybody that happens to be traveling, I think we can just have a fun, extra big event. You know, we can run some labyrinths, or we can run some fan maids, and maybe do some depths of Yoth, and just the things are the staples. Maybe have an Iron Man. That'd be fun.
That would be fun.
But yeah, we're open to ideas, and I think it'd be fun to use the podcast to tie in with that. So we'll have the podcast entered in there, maybe some prizes, maybe some special things for people that attend. It won't be, of course, as big as the Arkham in Flames that Drawn to the Flame did, or Arkham Knights or Gen Con, but we at least want to get the ball rolling, I think, and just bring the community together.
Yeah, did you have a date in mind?
I'm thinking Sunday, October 27th, and that date because obviously the game store is going to get really busy for the holidays, so it's right before the holidays hit. It's 3 or 4 weeks after we have our H.P. Lovecraft Film Festival, which is awesome, and we can plug the con at the event as well.
I think that's a good weekend to have it at. It's going to be a lot of fun. And your store is big enough to handle a ton of people. So even if we
can handle 300 people, but let's count on 30.
Yeah, I mean, even if it ends up being more than 30 people, your store can easily handle it. Should it be double or something,
Yeah, that'd be very cool. And we can certainly try to get stuff printed out for that time. I can certainly try to arrange that. But yeah, if you're in the Portland area and you want to get together with some of us and play some Arkham, we'll keep talking about this subject as the date gets closer on too. So don't feel like you've missed anything yet.
And if I have it on the right information, Nate and Leng, you already have plane tickets, which is phenomenal. Vase will host you both.
Yes, confirmed. I bought them like 12 seconds ago.
Nice. Well, if
Yeah.
nothing, you can
Tickets?
come to the second annual The Great Old Ones gaming convention in 2020.
We'll do an East Coast and a West Coast. That's what we'll do.
Nice.
We'll
I
do.
see what you did there. Very well
That'd
played.
be cool.
Yeah. But yeah, if no one else has anything to end tonight's show off with, I guess we'll just end it off with a whimper. Alrighty, well, this is the Great Old Ones Gaming Podcast. We're your hosts, Nate, Lost in Time and Space.
I'm Man from Leng from the Whisper in Darkness YouTube channel.
I'm Innkeeper Vase Odin from the Twisted Tentacle Inn.
And I am Nathan Early, who likes to lurk in the shadows.
Alright, well, thank you guys so much for listening.
Thank you.
Thank you.